Perfect. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for that. What should we say? Slight hitch, as that's pretty bold from Christoph Peterson. Welcome back to the stream, Christoph Peterson, who gets it sideways on the exit of 6 as well. But he is just about able to hold on to his own car, and in doing so, the position of 3rd spot. That Bentley spent much of the second half of the Paul Ricard race behind Martin Varga. He's now up ahead of the Mustang at long last. It must have been about 90 minutes of following him if you combine the two together. The question is now, pretty much the same question we asked of Sergei Tamara a couple laps ago, can he survive to turn 4 on the next lap without the Ford hauling back past him once again? This is Sergei Tamara. Total of 25 seconds worth of penalties. That's come from several smaller incidents as he started down in 10th position, and since then has been fighting his way back up the order, gaining spot after spot, and in doing so has been involved in plenty of action, shall we say. In the back of that shot, you'll see a green Mustang. That's Vincent Vicente, your pole sitter, closing in on these guys all the time as the Liam Neeson feints one way, goes back the other. Possibly a late defensive move there from Sergei Tamara, but it's not going to matter because Tamara is well beyond the edge of the turn, and he will get himself back onto the road, albeit 2 positions down. There may be a look at whether or not it was a late move. To be honest, I think he could get away with it because the late move was effectively taking a wide line through what is technically turn number 2. So he's got a solid argument there. The lawyers will get involved, and I reckon he could get away with that one, particularly given he's lost the position in the end anyway because it destabilized his car under braking. Knudsen is away and clear. 5th place is the first of your Nissans. 5 different manufacturers in the top 5, and a Ferrari in 6th now makes it 6 different manufacturers in the top 6. Balanced Performance Racing, known for its diversity. Drive-through penalty now for Sergei Tamara. I mean, that one you'd expect is going to be for track limits, although maybe it's just added up as far as a drive-through penalty from his individual incidents earlier on. To get track limits that early into the race is going to be a concern for Sergei Tamara because he's only raced for 35 minutes. He's got 55 still to go. This is Victor Vicente trying to make his way back up the order once again. He has done a pretty good job of that, actually. A neat and tidy move into turn number 4. Gets it squared up on the power and gets the position sorted. So our fact of 6 manufacturers in the top 6 turns back to 5 in the top 5 as the Ferrari is demoted behind the Ford Mustang. Recovering up the order, it's worth noting. Vicente now just 1.8 seconds away from the back of Ernest Limburg, so give it a couple of laps. Could be under pressure, actually, because the gap isn't all too big. On your screen is Josh Wood, the Toga Academy McLaren. The Toga Academy, a really, really great initiative in a way. It allows drivers to come in, essentially submit an application, and in doing so, gain all sorts of benefits and experience and mentoring sessions and so on from those drivers in the esports team and those who even just turn up to help with the mentoring. Really quick guys. And we consistently see folks in the Academy cars getting quicker and quicker still. You'll see them right to the front of the Rookie Series tomorrow evening. I've got no doubt of that. And Josh Wood, having taken the step up into the Pro Series, showing that he's got what it takes because he's comfortably inside the top 20 at the moment, fending off Budko behind in the BMW. Josh Wood not too far away, actually, from a top 5 in class if he gets a wriggle on here, albeit Vladimir Budko would like to do something about that, as would Gabriel Schmidt in the Mustang to the inside of 1, not close enough. I wonder if that's a tactical choice to try and challenge into 3, because we know how many horses the Ford has got. I'm impressed by this second wind almost from Martin Varga. We expected when Guilot got past him that Guilot would check out, and that has happened. What I expected in turn was that Christoph Peterson would get by and also check out to some degree, but it seems to me as if Varga's able to stay there, at least for now. Maybe the slipstream helping him out that little bit more. So he's able to stick in the toe, close up the straights, and Varga's keeping his hopes of a podium position alive here. Remember, back at Paul Ricard, he finished 4th. If he was to finish 4th again here, you know, he'd be really hungry for that podium when we go into next week's race. But for now, it's all about this week's race, and he is, as we say, sticking in the toe, keeping himself into tension, and with 50 minutes and a little bit more actually still on the clock, that's all you need to do at this stage in the race, because there's plenty more action and frays and topples and turns to come. I've absolutely no doubt of that one. In fact, I would bet absolutely nothing on it because I'm not a betting man, but figuratively I'd bet my house on the fact there's going to be a bit more action as we get through the remainder of the race. Martin Varga would have done his rear left tyre any help, however, in that brief moment, because he got totally sideways on the exit of turn number 4. It'll mean that it's nice and hot, although he will be grateful that through 6 and 7 he's able to lean on the other side of the car, give it a bit of a brake, and hopefully it'll be back into the right sort of grip window for upcoming Jochen-Rindt turn. You have to be about as brave as the great man, who of course never won here in the Red Bull Ring, or the Österreich Ring as it would have been known as then. The only Austrian to win at home in the Formula 1 Grand Prix, Niki Lauda. We're approaching his turn now, up at turn number 1. Slightly uphill, as is turn number 3, which is significantly uphill. You're actually on a 12% gradient just before. It's still uphill into 3, just not quite that steep. Getting back down towards 9 or 10% gradient as you actually hit the brakes. But just there, properly steep, as it levels out then in towards turn number 3. Varga keeping himself well and truly in contention. Also in contention here, I mean, this is properly surprising. Ernest Lindberg's not allowing Victor Vicente to get away. Victor made a brave move around the outside of 2 to set up the braking line for turn number 3. It does, of course, mean that he's a bit wide and out over the sausage curb on exit, however. That allows Ernest Lindberg's to challenge into 4. And now the Nissan is giving it a good go into 5 and 6. This one is 6. The outside line very possible to hold here if you're aggressive with a squeeze. Ernest Lindberg's not quite able to do that against the Ford Mustang of Vicente. And it's Vicente that holds onto a position I reckon he'll now rocket away from, in truth. And we predicted earlier on that Vicente would quickly make his way back up towards the likes of Martin Varga. It seems like as we are now into the pit window, Martin Varga will be under threat from Vicente, and for Victor it's a chance of a podium still in this one. Pit window open. First car to pit is going to be Christoph Peterson.
Olafumi Radfaranunde Scream is a legend and subscribed to the channel.
Thank you very much. I'm not even going to bother with that name, absolutely no chance. But thank you for following the channel as we get around to turn number 10, slightly further down in the order. That's Chris Wall in the gold Mustang. Oreshkin gaining a position as cars come into the pits, but maybe about to lose one to Opalka. Opalka not quite close enough, however, to challenge Andre. Andre looked great through the mid-corner of turn 1, but it was because he was going too quick. Ends up wide on the exit and could leave himself vulnerable to that all-carbon Ford behind, which reels him in like a fish on the end of the line. Is it the inside of 3? Quite close enough. So, pit window open, Peterson, Paron, Salvatore Amato, Sepe Leguin into the pits, as is Dariusz Chmielewski on this first lap. Bruno Battaglin also into the pits, down in 22nd position. Those guys will be banking on the fact that when everybody else comes into the spot, they are back out on fresh tyres, they've got clean air and can put in some solid laps. We'll also see some drivers doing the opposite of that, staying out until the very end of the window to try and take advantage of that same clean air, but give themselves fresher tyres at the end of the race instead. And we touched on Victor Vicente. The Ford is now right onto the back of Martin Varga within the space of about a lap or two, because he's closing in at the rate of a second a lap for 3rd position. If I was Martin Varga, I'd be thinking about the pit stops pretty quickly here, because you're not going to have the option of following Victor Vicente. You could at least take your own strategy and try and optimize when you come into the pits for tyre wear and such like later on in the stint. It's pretty good at the moment, however, between Andre Oreshkin, Opalaka, and just ahead of the pair of them, Chris Wall. They're now running in 7th overall. Remember that you can place votes on Twitch and YouTube, not on TikTok. Vote for driver of the day. You do that, !vote space and then the car number. So if you wanted to vote for race leader Jakob Knudsen, it would be !vote space 20 is what you would put in chat. You get 1 vote per platform. So if you're watching the stream over on YouTube, go and give us a follow on Twitch. Make sure you comment over there too, and you get twice as much impact. Producer Matt straight in on a vote for Victor Vicente, and I have to say, pretty good vote. I myself will try and stay impartial through this one, but Victor, recovery drive after incident that we know wasn't his fault, has a lot to do as there was an awkward moment there. That was the Ukrainian delving into the pits, whilst Christoph Peterson has already been in, so was coming round about as quick as he can with a fresh set of front tyres at 9 and 10. Here is Victor Vicente, currently leading the way in the driver of the day order. Actually, in the back, Liam Neeson has gone into what is the long lap penalty look for MotoGP there, actually. So, exploring all realms of the Austrian circuit as Vicente contemplates a move. I've no doubt of that to the inside of Martin Varga, but thinks better of it. Possibly lifting and coasting, saving just that little bit of fuel, so he has to stop for less time when he enters the pits. As for Josh Wood, he's another driver carrying on long into this one. We have seen Mitchell Sterenberg, Pro-Am leader, come in, however. Same is true of Chris Wall, who was effectively second in Pro-Am. Of course, on the track, those leads have swapped hands now for cars that have yet to come into the pits, but it'll be Sterenberg and Wall that are fighting each other on pit lane exit in just a moment or two, as we keep an eye on Josh Wood now behind Gabriel Schmidt, who's spent a lot of effort to try and get ahead of the 2 cars that are now behind him, and he'll be pretty upset, I expect, if Josh Wood gives it a go into 3, who does think about it, but is not quite close enough. Turns it in, gets it squared off at the apex, fires it out the other side, but you got no chance of catching the Mustang down the hill into turn 4. A vote for Martin Varga on driver of the day. That coming from Paul Mancunian, actually. Paul, I hope you are racing in the rookies tomorrow evening. I'm looking forward to resuming our battles as part of that one. As into the pits comes Victor Vicente. Really important that he gets it stopped on the blocks here, because if he's into the garage in just the right spot, which he seems to be, he'll be able to accelerate pretty quickly back out the other side when they finish the stop. That's how you get the minimum time in the pits. And he's coming 1 lap prior to Martin Varga at the very least, which means the undercut is going to be favouring him. Also in on this lap, Jakob Knudsen, your race leader by over 10 seconds before the pit window. I'm curious to see whether that comes down as he begins to exit pit road once more. Jakob Knudsen. Surprisingly tricky pit exit here, and race control will be monitoring that one. You've got to stay inside the white line, and yet your rear tyres will be cold and quite prone to sliding, which is always going to be one to keep an eye out on. Vicente is now out of the pits as well, back onto the racing circuit, so there straight away is a visual representation of what the difference between Knudsen and Vicente is. Who himself has a bit of traffic.
Mark Edmonds is a legend and subscribed to the channel.
Was pole position in this race and set to try and close in. Mark Edmonds, legend, absolute legend. Subscribe to the channel. Of course, we always appreciate people joining the community. We touched on earlier on plenty of racing action. I'll give you the full rundown at the end of the race, but if you're interested, if you can't hold off and you want to get involved in the Toga Motorsport community, and it is a great community, make sure you go and check out Sim Grid, where all the races are hosted, and you'll get links to Discord and so on and so forth if you find an event that you would like to sign up on. This is Christoph Peterson, who has lost the place to Vicente. Interestingly, has also lost the place to Pateron in the stop. It was a pretty long stop, that, for the Bentley, which has now got work to do, actually, in terms of trying to close back in once again. He's given himself, to say, a bit of effort in this one, to say the least. Nothing wrong with that. Peterson stopped for 1 minute and 20 seconds in the pits. 51 of that was stopped, sorry, and then it was only 41 stationary for Pateron, which is how he's so much quicker. He's gained 10 seconds. And the Ferrari, as a result, looking pretty solid in this one. Some of that, of course, could be it was a penalty, or he just simply aced the pit lane entry, all these sorts of things. It's also possible that whilst fuel is required, you can choose how much fuel you need based off of how much fuel you start the race with, as it looked for a moment there that Christoph was going for a move to the inside of turn number 1, which would be pretty brave. Did he get it done? He did indeed, as the exit over the hump, down into the trough and rise up towards 3 once again. We've not seen many moves into 1 so far, but that was Christoph Peterson thinking, I can't be held up here, because he was held up so much earlier on. He's got no more margin to spare. He has maintained that position into 3 as well, it's worth noting. He now finds himself 14 seconds off the back of Ernest Lindberg's, however, which puts in perspective how much Christoph lost in the pit stops. He himself, of course, was ahead of Lindberg's and right around about the same region as the likes of Fabian Guilot, Martin Varga for much of that first stint. We'll see how they play out into the second stint, whether there was any pace under the rather large bonnet of the Bentley. I've heard big enough to play Twister on the front of that Bentley if you really want to. I feel like that would be quite a treacherous and possibly expensive game of Twister, but that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard from being in the racing paddocks over the last few years. This is Dean Murrell. We saw him on stream a little bit last week, actually, and at the moment, post-pit stops, has got himself up into 3rd position in the Pro-Am categorization. 3rd position in class would be a really good go for Dean. However, keep an eye on the 2 cars behind, because that's Sepe Lagoon, championship leader in the Pro-Am category, driving the McLaren. And then we've got Salvatore Amato, who himself had a disconnection issue back at Paul Ricard. Otherwise, would have been right in the mix. If memory serves, he was leading the class when that disconnect happened, in fact. So keep an eye out for those 2. They're going to be trying to find a way through on Dean, and well, Dean's going to have his work cut out. At the very least, he knows that they're going to be similar on the straights to him, because it's a pair of the mid-engine cars, as opposed to trying to fend off one of the great front-engine beasts down the exit of 1 and run up into turn number 3. Now then, before the stops, we were very curious. We kept commenting on Vicente, the fact that he was up the order, up the order, up the order, back down the order a little bit. Well, he's now up the order once again. He won't have any damage because he'll have fixed that in the stop. With the pit window closed, 40 minutes to race, he finds himself, well, way off the road at turn 10, but pushing pretty hard on the rear of Fabian Guilot. This one will matter in terms of championship possessions, because Guilot currently leads the way, having won back at Paul Ricard, let us not forget. So if Vicente can close in some more, could be right in the mix. Vicente not there at Paul Ricard, needs every point he can get to the outside of turn number 3. That one hasn't worked yet, trying to hang it all the way around the outside. What it can do is give you a good run out the corner. However, Guilot said thank you very much to that one and just showed him all the way to the edge of the circuit and more. All of this battling is not helping them, it should be touched on. The gap before the stop was around about 11 seconds, 12 seconds between first and second positions. It's now upwards of 16, 17, maybe even 18 by the time we complete this pretty ferocious lap in the duel for second. And so if Vicente wants to get up towards the race leader, which he has the pace to do, he needs to get this move done at the next opportunity. It won't be through 6, it won't be through 7 or 8, which is what we tackle now. I suspect 9 and 10 are rare opportunities against the Aston Martin, which is oh so stable on the brakes. Where Vicente could be thinking about it, however, is into turn number 1, because we know the Ford Mustang has the legs on the run to 3 to fend off pretty much anything, even with the disadvantage of the slipstream. Here comes Victor Vicente then. Victor in the 70 Mustang, put it on pole position, drop down the order through no fault of his own. Is there an opportunity into turn number 1? No, there's not. We're right on board. I hope we stay here on the exit of turn 1, because this is going to be all about Slipstream City. Here we go then, underneath the big Aston Martin racing wing. It's front engine against front engine. It's United States against United Kingdom. And to the outside goes Victor Vicente. He keeps trying this move. I'm not sure I see it working, however, because here comes Fabian Guilot, shows him up to the sausage curb. The exit this time, however, from Victor Vicente is just that little bit better. The problem is he's going to be on the outside. They've got some traffic up ahead in the form of one of the Porsches, which is going to throw yet more considerations into this battle. battle as they have a bit of door-to-door rubbing on the straight. Guilot with the inside line, he's not going to give it up, although he's possibly been boxed out of this. The Porsche, the back marker, it's like multi-class racing here in the Pro Series. It dives to the inside, chops across the front of Vicente, who somehow avoids it and gains the position. Vicente into second position, Guilot, championship leader, into third. I reckon he'll probably sigh a sigh of relief after that one, because if he plays the points game, he'll be well and truly in the hunt. There's that moment once again where they almost got into the back of the all-silver Porsche 911. Heart in mouth for us. I suspect it will be heart all the way up out of the mouth and even swallowed once again for those two, because that was properly tight. Shows just how eager Vicente was to get the move done, though, because with 36 minutes on the clock, the gap ahead is 16.5 seconds. That means that with a minute and a half or so per lap, he needs to take, in essence, a second a lap and maybe a little bit more out in order to get there. That sounds ridiculous, but we know Vicente can lap 28 flat around here. Last time round, Jakob Knudsen, 129.1. So there is still a possibility of this race swinging back the other way. Remember, track limit's a factor here at Red Bull Ring as well. But now, however, Jakob Knudsen's having a great time. He would provisionally lead the championship if it were to finish as it is right now. Guilot dropping down one position. They would have both finished on the podium in both races, but Vicente is the factor that was not around back at Paul Ricard, and he's certainly making a big deal out of himself as Michael Opelaka closes up onto the back of Andre Oreshkin once again. The pole, not quite able to put it on pole, but the Mustang looking good in the early stages of this second stint. All the pit stops have been done, and we ought to give you a rundown of the order as a result. It's Jakob Knudsen who leads the way, as he has done from lap number 1, albeit it wasn't without trials in the opening stages. Second place is Victor Vicente, who's just done the fastest lap of the race, down to a 1:28.013, albeit Knudsen has responded with his own personal best as your race leader. Fabien Guilot, he himself sits in third position, having fought his way up the order, down the order, and back up once again. And then it's Ernest Lindbergs in fourth, Martin Varga fifth, just ahead of Christoph Peterson. As for your semi-pro order, where your leader is Mitchell Stirenberg in the 27 Nissan, Christopher Wall runs in second spot, and it's Salvatore Amato, after a hefty penalty in the pit stop, who's found himself in third position in the semi-pro order, ahead of Dean Merle, Wouter Gossai, Josh Wood, and then this man, Gabriel Schmidt, sitting sixth in class at this stage. 7th in class at this stage, I think, actually. It shows what I know about mathematics, as Gabriel Schmidt may yet be 8th in class. That's properly late from Budko just behind, who closes some more, but can't quite get close enough. And all the meanwhile, Sepe Lagoon's thinking I could do with a couple of extra positions here, because race winner last time out has not had the evening he would have been hoping for. Opelaka once again closing up to the rear of Andre Oreshkin. The gaps at the front are just beginning to open up a little bit now, actually. We touched on the fact that last time round it was a 28.0 for Vicente compared to a 28.3. This time around it's another 28.0 compared to a 28.4 for Jakob Knudsen, who we did wonder whether or not he was managing the gap. It seems as if that was the case for Jakob Knudsen, who's now just deploying a little bit more energy, using a bit more of the tyres to send a message back the way to second place to say it's not worth coming after me, I've got this in my pocket. In turn, we'll look slightly further down the order for some battles, and it's where we find this one. Opelaka accelerating out of what is an incredibly tricky turn number 10 as the front understeers. The rear isn't particularly comfortable on entry either. Turn is much the same at turn 1 as well, as we rise over the crest down under the Cupra bridge. On your left and then on your right you'll see the MotoGP chicane that's put in. No sense in that for GT3 cars. It's power straight in towards turn number 3. Not close enough for Michael Opelaka in the Proton Competition Ford Mustang. Ironically, number 911. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. It's not a Porsche. We also had 992 last week, I believe, which also was Porsche. So the number is somewhat confusing. 997, an Aston Martin in this class, and still Opelaka no way through on Andre Oreshkin just up ahead of him. In truth, he's never quite been close enough to try and overtake. The gap always 1 or 2 car lengths more than it needs to be to send a lunge up the inside, which is exactly what Seppi Laguin's just done for a position in the semi-pro class. Championship leader up the inside of Gabriel Schmidt, who himself had plenty to do last time at Paul Ricard. It will be a late one if this pails off. Oh, in the end, Seppi Lagun was closing towards the apex, and it looked to me as if his rival, Gabriel Schmidt, bailed out of that one a little bit. I wonder if he was worried about contact. Myself, with the advantage of the off-board camera, I don't think that contact was coming. It would have just been pretty tight at the apex, albeit Seppi Lagun now up a spot. It gives him some work to do. Next on his target list will be Josh Wood, some 5 seconds up the road. Another penalty, actually, here in the semi-pro class has gone the way of Salvatore Amato. He's collecting them like Pokemon cards at the moment. And it means that Dean Murrell, just 2.2 seconds away at the moment, is on for a podium, which would be a properly impressive result from Dean. Now, he's got to stay there, of course, and he's got half an hour to try and stay there. So it's not going to be easy, but he's there or thereabouts for a class podium. Up to this stage, his best race finish has been 24th overall. That just last week at Paul Ricard. And so for Dean, if he's able to finish 14th overall, possibly 3rd in class, that'll be really good, as Opelaka finally finds a gap up the inside of Andre Oreshkin. Is he able to hold it into 7? Yes, he is. And now we get to see the true pace of Opelaka, because for pretty much this whole race, first stint and second, he's been looking at the back of a Beamer. Now he's able to sting like one instead. Mitchell Sterenberg, your Pro-Am class leader, looking to start a bit of that Japanese war once again. The 27 Nissan closing onto the rear of the 69 Nissan. That's Darius Chmielewski, who's hanging around the fringes of the top 5 in the first half of stint 1. Since then has dropped back a little bit and now finds himself vulnerable. Albeit he won't lose any points for this in terms of the championship order, but it certainly won't help his case, because in turn you're dropping back towards the likes of Opelaka and Oreshkin, and we know that Opelaka's just been released. He's already put a second into Andre behind, so you'd like any sort of buffer you can get to the 911 Ford Mustang if you're Chmielewski, who last time around 129.6 for him. That's a second slower than his best lap, and we're not actually that far into the second stint of the race, so that could be one to keep an eye on. Of course, his best lap, he could have had the advantage of the tow as well, it's worth noting, because he was running in that pack until recently, at least. So for him, he's now running on his own. He's got eyes behind him. He won't need to do anything overtly defensive for now, at least, but the questions will begin to be asked as we continue on through this one. Sterenberg, he himself likes Zolder. He's never finished higher than 13th here at Toga Motorsport in the overall order. That, of course, does not consider class order. For now, however, he's en route to a class victory, assuming he can keep himself out of trouble, such as running beyond the circuit at turn 1. And it would be 9th overall, possibly even 8th, if you can find a way through on that Nissan just up ahead of him for the Toga Academy driver, which would be a best performance on his record here at Toga. If you have just joined us, this is the Pro Series, Season 1 of it here at Toga Motorsports, which means it's the fastest driver. There's no too fast cut-off time, there's nothing like that, there's no ballast. You go out, you go as quickly as you can in qualifying, and you do the same thing for 90 minutes. We had a pit stop halfway through the 90 minutes. That has been and gone, and now it's a straight sprint to the finish. We had thought the battle at the very head of the field was all but done. However, last time around, that gap came down by almost 2 seconds between Jakob Knudsen and Victor Vicente. So keep an eye on how that one plays out in the coming stages, because it's ebbing and flowing a bit more than we would have expected. This is your race leader Jakob Knudsen. Just behind, actually, is the battle between Sefe Le Guin and Gabriel Schmidt. Sefe Le Guin dips a wheel off of the circuit on the exit of turn 4. Does that open up an opportunity in the left-hander of 6? It does not seem so, as this is the part of the circuit where Le Guin's McLaren ought to be strong, although the Mustang is possibly going to show it to the inside here in just a moment or two. Isn't able to do that, and so we can turn our eyes back to Knudsen and what this time looks like. Last time through, a 1:30.1, which is 1.8 seconds slower than the 20 car's best lap of the race, which was only done in the recent moments as well. So how does this one look for Knudsen? Was it a case of a mistake and now he's cracking on? Back down to a 28.6, which is certainly better, albeit a couple of tenths away, so that will stem the bleeding relative to Victor Vicente, and we can turn our attention back to Gabriel Schmidt in the Toga Esports car. These Mustangs run really well across the various championships, both here at Toga and elsewhere, particularly in the Endurance Championships, where they're super stable and confidence-inducing. That stability can help you on the brakes, but not into turn 3 on this occasion, where Le Guin is simply too strong. The McLaren, not known for its straight-line performance. A lot of the drivers were concerned, shall we say, coming into the race, that this would be a difficult one for them in terms of, well, getting any sort of result out of it, to put it simply. However, at the moment, a McLaren leading the way. Apart from that, you then have to look down to Josh Wood and Sefe Le Guin in 16th and 17th. It might be 16th and 18th, because here comes Gabriel Schmidt once again to the outside of turn number 6. It'll give him the inside at 7. Le Guin's fallen for the bait because he's well out wide. Touch between the two. That will be looked at. Can Gabriel keep it out of the wall? He can. So Gabriel Schmidt will be able to get himself back onto the road, but we'll take another look. So Schmidt on that late apex line comes to the inside. Oh, he's just drifting across to the right, isn't he? It looked a little bit as if it could have been Sefe Le Guin drifting across to the left a smidge as well. So the stewards will look at that one. I reckon any of the 3 possible results are on the cards there. And if you follow Toga Sport on the likes of Instagram and TikTok, you'll have seen that quite often we get fantastic reels or posts put up to do with who do you think at fault is that incident. I'd love to get the general public's opinion on that, because that is going to be really, really tight. But at the very least, it has a big impact on the Pro-Am order, because they were just outside the top 5. They've now dropped quite a long way down. So Le Guin still there, of course. As for that Ford he was battling with, it's down 2 positions, but a lot more time than that would indicate. This is Pavel Kasperkiewicz, sorry, closing up onto the back of Sadek. They're about to get lapped by that Nissan behind, so it's not coming in to pass them for position. They don't have to get out of the way until it's right on their rear wing for more than a lap or so. And in turn, they should just behave predictably and hold their line anyway, just not defend their position against the car that is about to put them a lap down. For now, however, we can keep looking at the Barwell car of Paweł Kasperkiewicz, who gets all sorts of sideways coming through the left-hander of turn number 6 into turn number 7. As we touched on, we've got the Rookie Series tomorrow, kicking off season number 14 of that one. Expect to see a couple of Lamborghinis in that one, including Mitch Stratton, of course, another name that regular viewers will know very well. For now, however, Paweł Kasperkiewicz has got himself a bit of a slipstream up ahead, and he'll be trying to think in quite a gamesman style here. How can he let this Nissan through to his advantage? I don't think he's done it, to be honest there, as brutal and blunt as that may seem. He tried to get out of the way into turn 1, I think, there, but in doing so, ran deep, and the Nissan was compromised anyway. So now they've lost a ton of time relative to Mehdi Sadok up the road. So Paweł Kasperkiewicz goes deep at 3, allows the Nissan through, the Liam Nissan, of course. But in doing so, has cost himself a chance to challenge for 20th spot in the overall order. Let's keep those votes coming in for driver of the day as well. Remember, you can do that by typing into chat !vote space and then the car number. So if you wanted to vote for Pavel Kasperkovic on screen right now, that would be !vote space 970. If you were further up the order for Mitch Sternberg, for example, base 27, or possibly one of the options that's already in there, like Martin Varga, Victor Vicente. You get 1 vote per platform, excluding TikTok. TikTok does not allow for such integrations. So get yourself across to something like Twitch or indeed YouTube. Get a vote in. If you voted on YouTube, get the stream open on Twitch. Give us a follow, why not? But whilst you're there, importantly, get a vote in for driver of the day. If you're on Twitch, do the opposite. Get across to YouTube and enjoy all sorts of highlights content that goes up on there from time to time, as well as the Mustang gets all out of shape in the background of shot. The car we're looking at is Fabian Guilot, the 997, won last time out, on course for a podium position as it stands right now, because he's got a, should we call it healthy? I think healthy is the right word. About 5 seconds, 6 seconds, actually creeping up to 7 according to the timing there, over Ernest Limburg's in the 420 Nissan. Turn has quite a good margin over Martin Varga as well. Actually, the top 5 looking relatively secure in their positions at this stage. Ironically, Fabian Guilot, even if he were to finish on the podium twice and have a race victory to his name at the moment, he would lose the championship lead to Jakob Knudsen, who would have a 1st place and a 2nd place, were the checkered flag to come out right now, as that Porsche gets pretty close to the racing line whilst letting the leaders through once again. That's the 2nd time we've seen that one give us a little bit more excitement than you may be looking for from one of the back markers. As we've got a couple more follows and subscriptions across the various platforms. We can only say thank you for those. And if you want to get involved, head across to SimGrid. I'll keep preaching it, because we always want more people here in the Toga community, because it's yet more fun, jokes and laughs. 27, Dutchman Mitchell Sterenberg, however, doing a very solid job right now. The gap over Chris Wall, 1.9 seconds at the moment. And it has been gradually creeping down. Last time through, it came down by 0.3 of a second between the pair of them. If you look at the back of the shot, you'll see that bronze Ford Mustang. That's 2nd place in the Pro-Am class. Mitch Sterenberg, your leader in the Pro-Am categorization, just went quite a bit deep. I wonder if he's beginning to lose that front left tyre, which he gets leaned on through 1, leaned on through 9 and 10, and turn 4, of course, as well. Let us not forget. That Nissan, one of the older cars, the improvements in the modern GT3s, they don't actually tend to come in overall lap time, but they're more drivable. They wear the tyres that little bit better as well. And they might have better fuel economy, for example. And it's those sorts of things the Nissan will be struggling with. The electronics, the ABS, the traction control, they won't quite be as advanced as the likes of Pateron up the road, for example, in the Ferrari, or indeed Chris Wall just behind him in that Ford Mustang. For now, however, Sternberg doing a pretty good job of holding off Chris Wall. Last time around, the gap down by just 0.2 of a second. However, it seems to me that Chris Wall may well have made an error in the opening stage of this lap, albeit a small one that he's recuperated pretty quickly. Sternberg himself closing in onto the back of one of the Toga BMWs, which I don't think he'll be looking forward to seeing, actually. I think that's going to be Jack Vetka down in 23rd position, who himself was fighting David Roth in the 488 Ferrari. So these two cars battling over 22nd. Get a flash of the lights from Mitch Sterenberg, who is going to be held up now from Jack Vetka, because the dirty air is rushing over the Ferrari, it's rushing over the BMW, and it's all smashing the Nissan in its rather large gob. Will the two Toga Academy cars play nice with each other? We saw issues back in the rookies at Donington. This time around, they've got the memo, and it's Sterenberg that moves up ahead of the first of the lap cars. Without too much ado, what was the gap at the line between himself and Chris Wall? 1.9. And so it's, with all things considered, stayed relatively constant. You'll now get a nice toe up this back straight, indicating to the right is the Ferrari of David Roth, who tries to get out the way at turn number 3. I wonder if he knows he's indicating to the right. Has that been done when he was coming into the pits, I wonder? And it simply hasn't been turned off. You can't hear it clicking away, of course, on ACC. And that could be slightly confusing for those coming up to lap him, thinking it's an indication to go down the inside, when in reality, it should not be flashing away in the slightest. Sternberg closes up once again as now Chris Wall's beginning to feel the effects of the aero wash once again. Not as big as Formula 1 around this place, of course, but still a factor in these increasingly aerodynamic dependent GT3 cars. Oh, that was late from Mitch Sternberg. That did make me a bit nervous for a moment there. The Pro-Am leader senses the pressure now from Chris Wall, who's taken 0.2 of a second out on this lap already. He'll be taking yet more out on this run towards turn number 9. And now to the inside goes Mitch Sternberg, and almost into the back of him goes David Roth in the 488 Ferrari. That opens up an opportunity for Jack Vetka into turn number 10. That'll be mighty tight for 22nd spot on the way through. It was too tight. The pair of them are off. It's Roth off to road left. It's Jack Vetka off to road right, and I think they both ended up in the wall. Here's how it happened from the heli shot. They break into turn 10, and it's the squeeze given from the 488 Ferrari. Vetka, with nowhere to go, is slow on exit, gets an extra nudge from Chris Wall, who, put simply, I don't think could have done much more to avoid that. And that BMW, it's not the most visually attractive GT3 cars anyway, but it certainly lost its charm, shall we say, following that hefty impact with the wall. He was just past pit entry too, so even if he wants to get that repaired, he's going to have to do near enough a full lap, in fact slightly more than it, before he can get back round to his box. Sternberg escaped all of that, despite the slight concern. It may also have yielded a bit of front damage for Chris Wall. We'll keep an eye on how this next lap looks for him, because of course he did lose time last time around. Despite that, the gap between himself and Pro-Am class leader, that Toga Academy car we are currently looking at, has come down. It was in excess of 2 seconds as we joined the battle. It then went down to 1.9, then 1.7, then 1.4. But in clean air, Sternberg is able to respond. As I say, we'll have to wait to see the lap time before we know whether or not that's Sternberg getting quicker or damage yielding an effect on the chasing car. This is Gabriel Schmidt, who himself is going to get well out the way of the Lian Nissan. He was about to challenge Wouter Gossai for what would be 18th in the overall order. As we look now at Kyrilo Taran, the 101 car, up onto the rear of Jack Vetka, following Vetka's strife. Although it's not without difficulty for Taran either, who himself goes bounding over the dirt on the exit of the final corner. Now he'll close up towards turn number 1. And, well, we commented on the visual appearance of the BMW. It will actually be having a tangible effect here too, because I suspect that car will be suffering from understeer due to the splitter not being particularly well refined. It'll also have heapfuls more drag on the straights as Vetka seeks to defend his position against Taran, who swoops to the outside and may well be positioning his car pretty sensibly for the run towards turn number 4. All the meanwhile, David Roth is getting closer and closer once again, and he seems to survive this without any damage, which I'm not sure Jack Vetka will be too pleased about when he sees that Ferrari 488 closing in on him once again. That 488 Ferrari, a really interesting car, of course. It's the previous generation of Ferrari GT3 machinery. Now we've moved on to the Ferrari 296, the 488. That will be the Evo version of it. I certainly hope it's the Evo version of it. But it has 20% less downforce than the Ferrari 296, which is the one you see up the road in the hands of Salvatore Amato and Dean Murrell for reference. Does mean that under balanced performance you often get a bit of a helping hand on the weight, for example, however, and you're able to use all of the power on the straights a bit more easily. As Taran in the Mustang, I love the livery he's got. He's coming up to give another challenge onto the rear of Jack Vetka. The BMW struggling with understeer has got no answer for Taran, who swoops around the outside. There's maybe a bit of a nudge, a bump and a bash, but it is the Mustang who comes up ahead, and now David Roth in the Ferrari is getting involved once again with Jack Vetka. That one, well, let's not say anything we shouldn't say, but there's possibly a second look at this required. We'll go to the helicam to get that overhead shot. It's Roth in the slipstream, moves out to the right. Is he trying to get across Vetka? That's really, really hard to call. The stewards will get the luxury of onboard cameras to see which way the wheels were turning and so on and so forth, but it's the road going left there, let us not forget, through what is officially turn number 2. As such, you'd expect the cars to turn generally to the left. So was it Vetka going too far left? Or was it David Roth not going far enough? It could, of course, be some combination of both, and we see penalties being splashed around like confetti. Interestingly, a race leader now onto the back of that. As we see further down the order, Lucas Kuth in a lovely little battle with Vladimir Beluga. Beluga's first outing in that Porsche, I believe, off the top of my head, at least here in Toga in recent times. Beluga has the position as they run up towards 3. The Lamborghini, we know how good it is on the brakes. Not quite good enough to find a way through on Beluga on entry. May be able to get the job done on exit. However, the Porsche, not known for its straight line speed, is known for its traction, however, which is one of those factors we touched on at the start of the race. It's about top speed, traction, and braking performance. The Porsche pretty good in the traction due to having the engine at the rear and the weight over that rear axle. Ahead of the field, the gap continues to come down with just 12 minutes remaining on the clock. And I'm keeping a gentle eye on that one. It was 11 seconds. It's now down to 5.5 once again with 11 minutes, as we say, remaining in the race. So it's not totally done at the front here between Vicente and Jakob Knudsen, who's struggling for pace in the last couple laps, may well be hitting a bit of a cliff on his tyres. It's also coming together for the semi-pro lead, exactly like it did last week when we had all sorts of controversy in semi-pro on the very last lap of the race. This time around, we've got Mitchell Sterenberg. We thought, having cleared the traffic, that Chris Wall's challenge had gone away. It has not. The bronze Ford is closing in all the time. Looks a little bit unsteady through 9 and 10, but that's what you'd expect because its weight is well towards the front, and that will have resulted in that power slide out of turn number 10. Cost himself a couple of car lengths as a result. Cost himself a bit of grip from the rear left tyre, I suspect, exiting 1 as well, which won't do him any favours. But now he gets to Slipstream Godzilla, named because of how large the Japanese Nissan is. And he's reeling him in, isn't he, up that straight, just bit by bit, hauling. It's down from 7 tenths to, well, just under 7 tenths in reality by the time that they hit the brakes. But it's the Ford that looks comfortable, and they're approaching Vladimir Beluga again, actually, who was a factor, let us not forget, in the Pro-Am battle we were watching earlier on in this race. He was a factor also in the pro battle between Vicente and Guilot. Is he yet to play another part in this tale as Sterenberg and Chris Wall close in to that bit of traffic that I'm sure they'd rather not see, or at least Sterenberg would rather not see. Chris Wall may yet have an opportunity as a result of it, however, so he could be licking his lips. Gap at the front down by another 7 tenths of a second last time around, which is a very, very interesting one. 4 seconds, if you can take 8 tenths out a lap, that will come down pretty quickly between Knudsen and Vincent Vicente. Knudsen will have dealt with some traffic on that last lap in the form of Dean Murrell and also one of the BMWs. That'll be Bruno Battiglin, won't it, who's slightly further down the order. Not spoken about him so much this time round. But Vicente now has a sight, at least, of the car he's trying to catch, and that gives you that little bit more motivation. It'll be the same for Chris Wall, who's getting ever closer for the Pro-Am class lead. To the inside possibly goes Vicente. Roth, I think, after his expedition earlier on, thought better of taking the apex there, and it means that Vicente closes in once again. That lap for your race leader, 28.8, 28.5 for Vicente. The gap down just that touch more. This is Christoph Peterson. He's had a pretty quiet second stint, but it has allowed him just gently to reel in Martin Varga. Again, slightly quicker on previous tours. Now the Bentley is onto the back of the Ford Mustang, which is an all too familiar sight for Christoph Peterson, because he had that view for much of the first stint. He had it for much of the second stint at Paul Ricard as well, and now he finds himself with the same task up ahead of him. How do you pass the Mustang on a track where top speed can be oh so important? Earlier on in the race, it was a case of combining various corners together to try and get that job done through 9 and 10 and into 1. Is it going to be slightly simpler this time round? Has he managed to get himself a bit of a tyre advantage, a tyre offset, if you will, in the pit stop window? Or is he going like for like against Martin Varga and having all the difficulty facing him once again? It's 3/10 now between those two. It's really close for the semi-pro class lead. Sterenberg, for a moment, was less than a tenth ahead of Chris Wall as they came through their sector split. It's now just 2/10 between Sterenberg and Chris Wall. Somebody's off at the inside of turn 6. That's one of our McLarens from slightly further down in the pack. Hopefully they'll get that one rejoined. Seems to have kept it out of the wall. But here is Pettersson closing in on Varga. The Toga Motorsport car up ahead, the esports car, if you will, taking a really interesting line. That'll mean he's entering the pit lane. But has it held up his teammate? Martin Varga suddenly looks a little bit vulnerable, and we've seen this story before. Out of turn number 10. Here comes the Bentley. Pedal to the metal. Cannot stay with that Ford Mustang, can he? I mean, I genuinely thought he'll take some downforce off coming here compared to Paul Ricard, and that Bentley, at least in the slipstream, will be able to go with a Ford. But for whatever reason, it just cannot cope with the Mustang on the straights. As they climb into top gear, the Ford is hauling. But now Christoph's closer. Now he's able to think about the move, but it's the outside once again. He's got to be more proactive with that, you feel, through turn 2 and into the braking zone of 3 should he want the position. The inside line was available if he was willing to commit to it, but for now, Christoph Pettersson, well, he's got 6 minutes and 20 seconds. They're not going to catch the cars up ahead, so he's playing the long game in one sense. The question is just whether or not that will be the best plan, or if an opportunity simply isn't going to come his way for these remaining 6 minutes. Gap at the front continues to decrease as well between Knudsen and Vicente. It's now down to 3 3/4 seconds, so he might not get there on pure pace, but he'll be very, very close to it on the end of the race, as I believe we've seen a change, at least temporarily, for the semi-pro lead as Chris Wall was late on the brakes. It was then Sterenberg that got back ahead, and Opelaka blitzed the pair of them. I mean, you cannot make this up. Chris Wall closing once more. Let's have a look at how this played out. A touch between the two of them as they exited turn 3. That'll be looked at for a minor contact. They will keep the battle going into 4. Sterenberg on the inside, Chris Wall on the outside. There's got to be another piece of contact somewhere here, surely, between the two of them. Yeah, Nissan shuts the door on Chris Wall. That puts him onto the dirt, loses some traction, and it is Mikel Opelaka who gets himself up a spot. He is a pro-class car, so that's not giving him any further points. It is, however, putting a blocker between Mitchell Sterenberg, class leader, and his rival, Chris Wall. Just under 5 minutes left to go. Remember to get those votes in for Driver of the Day, !! vote, space, car number. If you think Mitch Sterenberg deserves it for his defensive drive, that'd be ! vote space 27. If you think Vicente may yet catch for the race lead, you got to say he would be a consideration for driver of the day. That would be ! vote space 70. Available on both Twitch and on YouTube. You can vote on both if you fancy. Here comes Chris Wall trying to get himself back in contention for the class lead. He needs to first pass Opelaka. It's Mustang on Mustang. And the 4 car, you'd say, should have the advantage exiting turn number 4, albeit Opelaka's going to fight this out around the outside of 5, because it gives him the inside for 6, and this is the last thing Chris Wall needs. They're more than within their rights to fight it out. However, absolutely no way through for Chris Wall, and with only 3 minutes 50 seconds on the clock, he's just watched that gap between himself and Sterenberg open way up once again. We ride on board now with 6th position, Christoph Pettersson, the German, finally able to get a good run on Martin Varga. The steely expression on that helmet as he hits the brakes for turn number 3. Varga is on the outside this time, finally inside for the Bentley, but a slide on traction. Is that going to be the opportunity for Christoph Pettersson? Finally goes awry, or can he still capitalize upon it? On to turn number 4 we go. A bit of a squeeze given from Varga. He fancies a go at this around the outside, does Martin Varga. He didn't win the rookie championship without racecraft, and he's using every single piece of that as the pair of them now slip on traction out of 4. Into 5 we go once again. This time Varga has the inside line. It's Bentley on the outside. Christoph has no choice but to try and tough it out as they go through 6, and he's lost the overlap, and another opportunity goes begging. What incredible defense this is now from Christoph Peterson. Or from Martin Varga, sorry. Christoph Peterson on the offense, of course, closing in again towards turn number 9. Is able to get a move? No, not quite close enough into the Jochen Rindt turn. There'll possibly be the opportunity for a block pass at turn 10 to Vizioso style, but he's out of shape. The nose did not do what it was told there, and the rear played funny games as well. That may be the opportunity gone, because with 2.5 minutes remaining, he's gone from right on the bumper of Varga to a 1.5 seconds back, I suspect, as they hit the brakes for turn number 1. The gap at the front keeps coming down, by the way. That was previously in excess of 11, 12, 13 seconds. Last time through, another second came out of it. The gap between first and second places, well, you can see it. It's a car length. We don't even need to talk in terms of time anymore, as Victor Vicente is looking to take a win away from Jakob Knudsen. Knudsen, let us not forget, led in the opening stages of Paul Ricard. He had that win snatched away from him as Guilot charged through the field. This time, it's your pole sitter, Vicente, who is closing in, reeling him in the final stages of this race. We're lapping 1 minute 30. It's going to be really tight as to whether this is 1 lap to go or 2 laps to go. We'll cross the line now. I think we get 2 more out of this, albeit very, very close. As to the inside looks Victor Vicente. We'll assume this is the penultimate lap, I think, although if they hold each other up, it may not be. Great exit from turn number 1 for Vicente. He started from pole position. He was involved in an incident through no fault of his own. He's charged from outside the top 10, and now to the inside of turn number 3 for the lead of the race. It's Vicente in the Mustang on the brakes. He's through and ahead of Jakob Knudsen. Knudsen will pick up a whole big dose of tow, however, as they run down the hill towards turn number 4. The McLaren is strong in the second half of the lap, and if he wants to use that, now is the time. 52 seconds remain as we brake for turn 4. It's the outside for Knudsen. It'll give him a reasonable amount of momentum on exit of the corner, you would have thought, but he's not able to live with Vicente, who's been taking chunks, heaps, mountains of time out of him in recent laps. Now we go through 6. Surely the McLaren will close, and it does. Knudsen's not done with this yet. Jakob had the fastest lap of the race in the opening stages. He's consistently lapped in the mid to low 28s, and he's just trying to cling on now to the back of Victor Vicente, who with 20 seconds left, I think will creep through for another lap, but it'll be a case of seconds. Well, barely a handful of them at that, as your top 2 hit turn 10 for the penultimate time. They accelerate out of that corner up towards the line. Clock goes 5, 4, 3, and they're on to what is the final lap of the race. Half a second is Jakob Knudsen's advantage. It's Victor Vicente's advantage, I should say. It's been the other way around for so long in this race. Knudsen is closing. He is properly closing through turn 1. That was complete commitment, and there's a back marker to come into play yet. The Barwell car out of the throttle, getting well out the way of this lead battle as Knudsen fights to prevent another win being snatched away from him in the closing stages. He did so well at Paul Ricard. It was P2. He did so well here at Red Bull Ring. Surely it's not going to be another P2. Christoph Peterson fancies yet another go at Martin Varga, by the way, slightly further down the order. These guys are almost half a lap behind your leaders now, given the pace at the front, but there was no way through at turn number 4 for Knudsen. We know he's good through 6. We know the McLaren is balanced through 7. It's all going to be about the final corner now. Can he get a run in towards the Jochen Rindt turn and then the final right-hander on the race circuit? The Mustang looks good, but not as good as the McLaren through 6. It'll be the same through 7. Here comes Jakob Knudsen. He's on the throttle early. He's too far back, I think, though. He'll get a distant tow, but not enough of it to close in on the Mustang on the run towards turn 9, and it's just 2 corners to go for the recovery drive of all recovery drives. Victor Vicente put it on pole, got taken out and dropped outside the top 10. He's back to the head of the field, however, and on the last lap of the race, he is your victor. Victor Vicente, race winner here at the Red Bull Ring. Jakob Knudsen within a second of him at the line, but could not quite fend him off in the closing stages. Fabian Guilot will be 3rd, Ernest Lindberg's 4th, and this is the battle for 5th position. Martin Varga in the Ford, Christoph Peterson in the Bentley. Is Peterson able to offer anything in this final corner? We know he's been good on the brakes, but he's not quite able to send one up the inside. He'll get a good run out of 10, but Martin Varga well, defensive drive of the day, it's worth noting for him. He has once again fended off Christoph Peterson. I hope we get to see that battle resumed as we get on through the remainder of the season. Jeremy Pateron up to the line, top Ferrari in that one, and P7 for him. I think that's probably his best result at Toga across all races. Then you get Schmielewski in 8th, Mitch Sterenberg, 9th position inside the top 10, and wins in Pro-Am despite a stern challenge from Chris Wall in the end. He'll come home for second in class, Chris Wall, albeit behind Opelaka on the race circuit. Behind those guys, the cars already crossing the line. It will be Salvatore Amato who takes third in Pro-Am ahead of Dean Murrow, Josh Wood, Budko, Muddy Sadok, Wouter Gossai, Gabriel Schmidt, rounding out your top 20. I was hoping we were going to get some donuts there from the Nissan, but Mitch Sterenberg obviously not able to get the traction control off quick enough. Or possibly come to join us in the commentary box. You never know. We'll see whether or not we get to talk to him in that one. Great donuts, it should be said, from Vladimir Beluga in that one as well. And deservingly, driver of the day at the end there, going the way of Victor Vicente. Now then, what that means is that we get the fantastic opportunity to talk to some of our drivers, with that race having rounded up. So any drivers who are listening in on the stream, feel free to come and join us in the interview waiting room, and then we'll have a chat with you in just a moment or two. We can kick off our interviews then. We have, well, I suppose now, technically, he's still championship leader in Pro-Am. He'll have lost that now, however. It is Sepe Lagoon. Talk to us, Sepe. I mean, what a race that was. Not quite as good for you in terms of the championship as Paul Ricard, but I'm sure you enjoyed it nonetheless.
I didn't enjoy it at all, to be honest.
Oh dear.
From qualifying, the car fell off. I think a problem with the setup or something, but in the race I solved it kinda because I went from P14 to P4. And also the moment I was P3 until lap 33 on the end, I got taken out by Mr. Salvatore Amato, I think it is, because yeah, he can't get a podium without taking me out, I think. Don't know what happened there. I watched the replay and I left space on the outside in the final corner, but he decided to touch me out of the race. And
Unfortunate in that case then, but obviously championship, I presume you're thinking longer term. There's still plenty of rounds, including, for example, Bathurst. When you go ahead to that, are you thinking that it's going to come your way? The McLaren obviously was never going to be favoured here at Red Bull Ring.
It's of course I think a lot about the long term. It's a long, not a long season, but 4 races left. I can still win it with, winning the next 4 races and I'm champion. But yeah, it's not a nice feeling to go to the next race when you have this fit performance.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for joining us. I wish you far better luck next time out. We always enjoy speaking to you in the box. And good luck at Bathurst. I'm sure you'll be up the front there. I got a sneaking suspicion you'll have good fortune at that one.
Thank you.
Apologies for the language if we have any of our younger listeners in that one. Emotions always strong in our virtual park firmate, shall we say. Someone we can talk to straight after that, actually, is going to be Salvatore Amato. Salvatore, we were just speaking actually to Sepe there, and I'm hearing there's a bit of contact towards the rear end of the race. What's your take on that?
Hello.
Hello.
I had this is my second race in this league, and I don't know how the others defend or behave. So I tried everything I could, also because I started very low on fuel. And then I had contact with Starenberg, I think, but I gave him back the position. So, to be honest, I will appeal for that because for me, since I already lost something like 15 seconds waiting for him, I think 15 was too much. But however, it was a fantastic race. I had so much fun. Unfortunately, I saved the penalty because I actually didn't know that you can unplug that function. But it was a very great race because I've never raced in here on the dry, and I have to say that overall the field was good, the speed was crazy, so I had a lot of fun. Ignoring the result, of course, but I don't care so
Yes.
much about that.
And the remaining rounds of the championship, also, we've got some cracking tracks on there. They're like, and some that you'll know inside out already, Spa and Monza. Is there something that stands out for you? Is there a round you're particularly looking forward to?
Actually, I don't know because for Easter I will move away from my home, so I will miss a couple of events. But however, I really like the track lists. Unfortunately, I had a fatal crash in the first race, otherwise, it would have been a good result also there. But I don't think I am in the race for the championship because I must withdraw for 2 races. But however, for me, it's a new community. I'm looking for places where to race, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Grand. Well, it's perfect to have you. Good luck at the next round you are competing in. If
Thank you
it's
so
next
much.
week,
Good
that'll be
night, guys.
Bathurst. And thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to us. Grazie, Emily.
Grazie a voi.
In turn, we have Mitch Sterenberg waiting on us. And I remember Mitch put together a fantastic race. He was defending in the closing stages, and that resulted in a really interesting development. I mean, Mitch, talk to us about that race. You were well up the front of the field the whole way through, and yet in the closing stages there was a bit more pressure with somebody in a different class getting involved as well.
Oh man. First part of the race, I was under pressure by the 103 Ferrari, who was definitely faster than me most of that stint. Luckily, he had some penalties, and we had a small incident. I'm not sure what happened. I haven't looked at the replay, but in my opinion, I got taken out. But well, we'll see. And then the pit stops came around. I completely messed up my pit entry. Lost like 3 seconds only in the entry. Somehow came out slightly in front of the Ford. Then started to pull away a bit, and then my front tires just died. They just didn't steer anymore. I'm sweaty, man.
You're in one of the more recognizable cars, should we say, as well, with that big Nissan. And the Red Bull Ring, I presume it was working quite well. But when you look ahead in the calendar and you see the final round at Suzuka, for example, is there anything you're a bit more apprehensive about?
Bathurst for sure. Bathurst for sure. I'm not good at Bathurst, so that's probably gonna be a worse race for me. I like Suzuka, so who knows what happens there. But yeah, for sure, if Bathurst is the one that's I'd rather ride off probably.
Well, it's coming up next week, so you better get practicing in that case. Thank you very much for your time. And as I say, good luck in the rest of the championship.
Yes, thank you very much.
That may just about do us. I believe we got one more, actually. We've got Lucas has joined our virtual part for me, so we'll pull him in. Lucas, talk to me about that race for you, because we saw you on a couple of occasions. Lots going on, shall we say.
Yeah, it was really rough. I started in the pits, and then I spun multiple times, then the drive-through, and I braked too late for the pit entry, so I mispressed the pit limiter, so I got a 30-second stop penalty. So it was a little bit fucked my race, and I will look if I go on in the next race at Bathurst.
Yes, and for Bathurst, I mean, obviously, that's always going to be an exciting track. Have you got anything there where you think, do you know what, actually, I'm going to be solid because on the straights, my car, I can set it up nicely for that because it's stable at the top of the mountain? Or is it one where it's going to be all about track position for you?
I will look that I will perform. So staying in my qualifying position or work up, not down,
Yes.
like today. And yeah, I will test a little setups so I am comfortable in the Lambo, and then we will look.
Perfect. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us. Good luck in the rest of the season to come. There's still plenty of races, so I'm sure we'll get you on camera a few more times, and there'll be a highlight reel by the end of it.
Yeah, I'm at Rookie Wednesday race tomorrow too, so
Ah,
I have
perfect.
to find the setup for tomorrow too.
And are you driving same car in that, different car?
Yeah, sim Lambo.
Perfect.
I'm
Well,
very comfortable in the Lambo, so yeah.
I gave it a go myself the other evening. I found it quite a friendly car in a sense. It was very nice. Everything apart from a big curb. Everything apart from a big curb is pretty happy.
Yeah, like Red Bulling on the first and last corner, there are and the third corner, there are multiple sausage cups, and they are deadly for the Lambo.
Yeah. Well, good luck at Rookie Wednesday. Zolder, a couple of big curves for you, so hopefully that'll go to plan. And we look forward to seeing you here next week for Bathurst.
Yeah, thanks. I have a nice day.
That brings us towards the end of our interviews. I did promise I would tell you all about how you can get involved here at Toga. So, of course, number one, you can come and join our Discord. Number two, if you head across to SimGrid, there are so many events on offer. So I'll give you the full rundown. First and foremost, we've got this Pro Series Season 1 that is currently ongoing. Tomorrow is the first round of the Rookie Wednesday Season 14. That one kicking off at Zolder. I'm not quite sure you'll be able to sign up for round 1 now because there was a qualification event running from last week through to this evening, but you might be able to sign up for round 2 onwards, so it's definitely worth checking out. In turn, we've got the Mini Endurance Championship ongoing, so that's slightly longer races, but not so long that you have to spend all day on the sim. This weekend, we've got the 5,000 member Sprint Challenge. I myself am contemplating an entry in that because it looks to be really, really good fun. Then we've got the Toga X CRF 12 Hours of Watkins Glen race, the Manufacturers Cup coming up in May as well, and the Endurance League in June, where we kick it off with 6 hours of Donington Park, something that I reckon will be absolutely mega if round 1 of season 13 in the Rookie Wednesdays is anything to go by. In the meantime, however, all we have to say is thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you next week, just after 7 p.m. once again for round number 3 at Bathurst. My name has been Tom Davis. Producing has been the marvelous, magnificent Mac, and this has been Toga Motorsport.